When Robert Irwin stepped onto the view, he expected the usual enthusiastic conversation about wildlife, conservation, and his father's legacy. But as the discussion unfolded, the tone shifted sharply. Joy Behar, known for her blunt questions, suppressed Robert on issues ranging from animal captivity controversies to recent viral clips of him handling crocodiles. Her tone quickly grew confrontational, and the tension became visible as Robert attempted to remain composed while defending the principles his family has stood by for decades. The exchange began innocently enough, with Robert sharing updates from the Australia Zoo, but the moment Joy brought up criticism from online activists, the atmosphere changed. She questioned whether the Irwin family's approach to wildlife education was still appropriate in today's climate. Robert, trying to remain respectful, explained that their methods prioritize animal welfare and conservation. However, Joy interrupted repeatedly, pushing him to admit that certain interactions looked dangerous or outdated, fueling an unexpected clash. Robert attempted to clarify that every encounter seen on camera is carefully supervised by experts and follows strict safety protocols, yet Joy continued probing. Her insistence that public spectacle might overshadow conservation messaging triggered visible frustration. Robert leaned forward, his voice rising slightly as he insisted that their work saves thousands of animals annually. The audience sensed the growing friction, with murmurs spreading as Robert fought to steer the conversation back toward positive conservation impact. When Joy suggested that some of the Irwin videos resemble stunts, Robert's patience began to slip. He explained how those moments inspire millions of young people to care about nature, which is crucial in an age of environmental decline. Joy countered by saying inspiration doesn't justify potential risk. Robert's expression hardened, and he told her that oversimplifying their mission undermines years of scientific effort, causing a noticeable shift in his normally cheerful demeanor. What pushed Robert closer to erupting was the implication that his late father, Steve Irwin, popularized sensationalism more than education. Robert sat up straight, firmly responding that his father dedicated his life to protecting wildlife, not performing tricks. He emphasized that critics often misunderstand the depth of their conservation programs. This moment hit the emotional core of the interview, and the studio fell almost silent as viewers sensed Robert defending not just his work but his family's honor. Joy, however, persisted, mentioning past controversies involving wildlife interactions on TV. She argued that modern audiences are more sensitive to animal rights concerns and that the Irwins must adapt. Robert, now visibly irritated, insisted they already have evolved, expanding research initiatives, rehabilitation programs, and habitat restoration. He stressed that judging their efforts based solely on brief viral clips ignores the broader mission that defines their organization's identity. The co-hosts attempted to steer the conversation back to lighter topics, but Joy cut in again with the pointed question about whether Robert cares more about public image than conservation. At this point, Robert's tone sharpened. He stated firmly that their only priority is protecting wildlife and educating the world. He added that anyone who spends a day at the Australia Zoo would see that their animals receive the highest care, with state-of-the-art facilities and dedicated veterinarians. Tension peaked when Joy suggested that some viewers believe Robert enjoys showing off. Robert's eyes widened, and he leaned forward, saying he has never once performed for personal glory. His energy comes from passion, not ego. He explained that people misunderstand his enthusiasm as theatrics, when in reality he's channeling excitement meant to inspire younger generations to love animals. The exchange felt emotionally charged, pushing the interview into unexpected territory. A co-host asked Robert to elaborate on the conservation impact of his programs, giving him space to regain composure. Robert explained how his team rehabilitates injured animals affected by bushfires, pollution, and habitat loss. He highlighted their breeding programs for endangered species and the scientific research collaborations that drive global understanding. This moment allowed him to redirect the conversation toward constructive topics before Joy interjected again with another challenging remark. Joy questioned whether the Australia Zoo profits more from publicity than conservation. Robert exhaled sharply, visibly fed up. He clarified that every dollar made supports hospital expansions, conservation grants, and field operations. He said criticism that assumes profit is the goal completely misunderstands their structure. His voice cracked slightly as he explained the emotional weight of carrying his father's legacy while facing constant scrutiny from people who have never witnessed their work firsthand. At this point, the audience reacted audibly, signaling discomfort with the escalating conflict. Robert's frustration reached a boiling point when Joy accused certain crocodile handling segments of being irresponsible television. Robert responded forcefully, explaining that crocodiles are misunderstood animals and that showing safe interaction helps dispel fear. He said portraying them only as dangerous predators harms conservation. His passion burst through, marking one of the rawest moments of the interview. Joy insisted that television should avoid featuring potentially dangerous wildlife interactions altogether. Robert countered that education requires visibility of that people protect what they understand. He argued that hiding nature from audiences widens the disconnect between humans and wildlife. His voice rose as he emphasized that crises like extinction and climate change demand bold outreach, not sanitized messaging. The exchange intensified, gripping viewers watching the episode live. Another co-host attempted to de-escalate, mentioning how Robert's work inspires children. Robert softened slightly, explaining that he receives letters from young fans who say his videos spark their love for animals. He said those moments matter deeply and validate the risk of public critique. Yet before he could finish, Joy made another remark suggesting some kids imitate dangerous behavior they see online. Robert's patience snapped again, and he refuted the claim firmly. Robert insisted that their content always includes safety messaging and supervision. He said children typically learn caution through education, not fear, and that they always encourage respect, not reckless imitation. His defense was passionate, bordering on emotionally charged. He clarified that portraying wildlife realistically as showing both beauty and danger is crucial for proper understanding. The studio audience watched closely, sensing the intensity between Joy and Robert was far from over. The conversation shifted when Joy criticized the practice of feeding crocodiles on camera. Robert erupted briefly, saying feeding demonstrations are necessary for the animal's physical and mental health. He explained that crocodiles require stimulation and targeted exercise, and feeding is part of natural behavior enrichment. He said censoring such moments for TV would misrepresent wildlife care and create unrealistic expectations of how conservationists actually manage large apex predators. Joy pushed again, implying the feeding scenes were designed mainly for entertainment. Robert firmly denied this, stating that these demonstrations are educational, controlled, and carried out by experts. He added that the Irwins have spent decades teaching respect for wildlife, not encouraging spectacle. His face showed clear frustration, and his voice carried a level of intensity rarely seen in his public appearances, emphasizing just how personal the topic is to him. Another co-host attempted to intervene, asking Robert about recent expansion projects at the Australia Zoo. Robert welcomed the shifter and spoke passionately about new rescue facilities and increased research funding. But Joy, still unsatisfied, circled back to earlier criticisms, asking if he ever regrets growing up in the public eye. Robert paused, took a breath, and explained that despite pressures, he considers it an honor to continue his father's mission. Robert elaborated that being a public figure allows him to advocate for endangered species at a scale that many conservationists can only dream of. He admitted the scrutiny can be challenging, but said it's worth it if it brings awareness to threatened ecosystems. Joy responded skeptically, asking whether constant media presence might distort his message. Robert countered that social platforms allow vital information to reach younger audiences who will shape the future. Frustration returned when Joy suggested that Robert's global popularity might overshadow the animals themselves. Robert insisted that he has always directed attention toward wildlife and conservation issues, not personal fame. He highlighted numerous documentaries focusing exclusively on endangered animals, ecosystems, and rehabilitation. He said his presence simply serves as a bridge between audiences and nature, not a distraction, and that undermining that purpose is unfair. The interview took another sharp turn when Joy questioned the ethics of allowing tourists into certain wildlife enclosures. Robert immediately clarified that all visitor interactions follow strict guidelines, prioritize animal welfare, and are overseen by trained professionals. He said such interactions strengthen human-wildlife connection, encouraging long-term support for conservation. Joy countered by claiming that some people criticize the practice online, prompting another strong defense from Robert. Robert explained that critics often rely on misleading footage or incomplete context. He said responsible wildlife interaction can be life-changing, giving people a deeper appreciation for endangered species. He added that these educational moments fund much of their rescue and release efforts, which operate around the clock. His growing intensity conveyed a clear message. The criticisms presented by Joy were oversimplified and detached from the reality of conservation work. A co-host noted the emotional weight in Robert's responses and asked how he copes with constant pressure. Robert admitted it's tough but said the work itself fuels him. From treating injured animals to helping restore damaged habitats, he expressed gratitude for his team and the countless supporters who believe in their mission. Joy then commented that passion doesn't excuse questionable practices, reigniting the tension yet again. Robert, visibly exhausted by the back and forth, took a deep breath and addressed the broader issue. He said conservation relies on transparency, dedication, and public engagement. He argued that dismissing their efforts based on selective criticism diminishes the thousands of animals they save annually. His voice shook slightly, revealing just how deeply he feels the weight of responsibility placed upon him as the face of modern Irwin conservation work. Joy challenged him one final time by questioning whether he ever feels overwhelmed continuing his father's legacy. This touched a nerve. Robert leaned forward, saying he feels immense pride carrying his father's mission forward. He said the work is not a burden but a calling, shaped by love, family, and commitment to nature. His reply silenced the room, revealing the raw emotional truth beneath the heated argument. Sensing the heaviness of the moment, a co-host asked Robert to reflect on what motivates him daily. Robert spoke softly but powerfully, describing the fulfillment of releasing rehabilitated animals back into the wild, the joy of educating children, and the hope of protecting Earth's fragile ecosystems. His emotion-filled words shifted the atmosphere, reminding viewers that despite the conflict, his mission remains sincere and deeply meaningful. Joy then questioned whether he feels obligated to act cheerful all the time due to public expectations. Robert admitted he tries to stay positive because hope energizes conservation efforts, but he acknowledged moments like this interview show he's human and passionate, and sometimes that passion erupts. He added that confronting criticism is necessary if it helps clarify misconceptions and strengthen their commitment to wildlife protection. Robert recentered himself by discussing the future of conservation technology, such as wildlife tracking, habitat mapping, and DNA research. He said these innovations help protect threatened species more effectively. He emphasized that public engagement plays a crucial role, and despite heated moments, conversations like the one on The View are opportunities to educate millions, even when they become unexpectedly contentious. The hosts then shifted to lighter commentary, asking about Robert's personal adventures. He shared stories of encounters with rescued animals, long nights assisting veterinarians, and emotional connections formed through conservation work. Even as he smiled again, hints of lingering tension remained, yet his commitment to positivity prevailed, reminding viewers of the passion that drives him forward despite challenging interviews like this one. As the conversation neared its end, Joy offered a brief acknowledgement that Robert's work has significant impact. Though she maintained her concerns, Robert accepted the comment graciously, saying open dialogue is essential. He emphasized that disagreement is part of progress as long as it leads to better understanding. His poise returned, though the earlier interruption left a lasting impression on the audience. Wrapping up, Robert thanked the hosts for having him, stating that even difficult discussions help push conservation forward. He reiterated that his father's legacy motivates him daily, and no amount of criticism will deter him from fighting for wildlife protection. The audience applauded as he concluded with the message of unity, urging people to work together for the planet. Despite the heated clash, Robert's passion and conviction ultimately shaped the interview's powerful ending. After the show cut to a commercial break, Robert remained seated, visibly trying to settle his emotions. Crew members approached him to offer water and reassurance, but he waved politely, insisting he was fine. He stared down at the table for a moment, gathering himself. The tension from the earlier clash still hung thick in the air, and several audience members whispered about how unexpectedly intense the interview had become. Robert took slow breaths, preparing to return on camera with composure. When the cameras switched back on, Robert straightened his posture and forced a gentle smile. One co-host quickly apologized if the earlier questioning felt abrasive, attempting to ease the atmosphere. Robert nodded, saying he appreciated tough conversations because they provide an opportunity to clarify misconceptions. The audience applauded lightly, sensing his professionalism. Joy remained silent for a moment, watching Robert carefully before offering another pointed remark that revived the simmering tension. Joy asked whether Robert ever fears the industry might exploit him the way it historically exploited other young stars. Robert responded calmly, explaining that his family keeps him grounded and that their conservation mission prevents him from being drawn into superficial celebrity culture. He emphasized that his purpose goes beyond entertainment. This moment allowed him to reclaim control of the dialogue, reinforcing that his life revolves around meaningful work, not media expectations. The topic shifted toward public perception again, with Joy suggesting that constant scrutiny must take an emotional toll. Robert admitted that criticism can be draining, but said he tries to view it as part of the responsibility he carries. He added that wildlife doesn't get a voice, so he must speak with conviction, even when conversations get confrontational. The sincerity in his voice resonated with viewers, restoring some of the warmth lost earlier in the episode. Robert explained how he deals with online backlash by focusing on the animals he helps every day. He described waking up to the sound of birds at the zoo, walking through rehabilitation enclosures, and reminding himself that real impact happens far from the internet. This grounded perspective shifted the studio's energy, earning supportive nods from the co-hosts. Even Joy seemed momentarily softened by his genuine dedication, though the tension still lingered beneath the surface. Trying to lighten the mood, a co-host asked Robert about his most memorable rescue this year. Robert described a koala suffering from severe burns during bushfire season. His voice warmed as he recounted the lengthy treatment, the moment the animal regained strength, and its eventual release into a protected habitat. The audience reacted with heartfelt applause, appreciating this emotional reminder of the real-life consequences driving his work. But before the mood shifted entirely, Joy revisited concerns about the danger factor in his public demonstrations. Robert's eyebrows tightened, but he kept his tone measured. He explained that every dangerous moment is calculated, monitored, and based on expert understanding. He said fear-driven messaging harms conservation and that educating people requires honesty about wildlife behavior. His composed but firm reply demonstrated he still felt the weight of earlier criticisms. Robert emphasized that public engagement is essential for conservation funding. He explained that without televised outreach, documentaries, and social media campaigns, many endangered species would receive far less attention and support. Joy countered by asking whether the conservation world relies too heavily on personalities rather than science. Robert disagreed respectfully, saying personalities can amplify science, not overshadow it. This exchange reframed the discussion in a surprisingly productive direction. One co-host encouraged Robert to speak more about the Australia Zoo scientific work. He described their genetics research, wildlife disease monitoring, and ecological studies conducted with universities. Robert said that behind every exciting clip online lies a network of biologists, veterinarians, and researchers working tirelessly. The detail in his explanation impressed the audience, reminding them that his world involves much more than on-camera encounters. As the conversation continued, Joy asked how Robert balances showmanship with responsibility. Robert responded by saying authenticity guides everything he does. He doesn't perform for attention, he shares because he believes passion is contagious. He said young people crave genuine experiences, and if his enthusiasm encourages them to care about nature, Then the balance is achieved naturally. His calm confidence helped reclaim harmony in the room. The co-hosts asked Robert what advice he gives to aspiring conservationists. He encouraged them to start locally protecting green spaces, volunteering at shelters, or participating in clean-up efforts. He said meaningful change often begins in small, consistent actions. His message resonated deeply with the audience, offering a refreshing shift from the earlier conflict and showcasing the optimistic, motivational side of his personality. However, Joy posed yet another challenging question, asking Robert whether he ever feels overshadowed by his father's legendary status. Robert paused, then answered with heartfelt honesty. He said his father's legacy isn't a shadow but a guide. He sees Steve Irwin not as a comparison but as a source of inspiration, shaping the values he holds. His response drew a long round of applause that softened the interview's earlier intensity. The conversation transitioned to Robert's hopes for the future. He explained that he wants to expand global conservation networks, unify scientists, educators, and communities, and create a generation empowered to protect wildlife. He dreams of building more rescue facilities, establishing conservation scholarships, and continuing to innovate. The passion in his voice painted a hopeful image of what's possible when commitment meets collaboration. A co-host asked whether he plans to continue appearing frequently in media, despite the challenges it brings. Robert answered that he will always use any platform available to spread conservation awareness. He said even difficult interviews are worthwhile if they provoke thought or inspire someone watching. He acknowledged that not all conversations will be comfortable, but wildlife advocacy requires courage in uncomfortable spaces. As the extended interview drew near its end, Robert thanked the panel for the dialogue, even the tough moments. He said passionate debate proves that people care, and caring is the first step toward change. The audience applauded as he stood, offering a courteous nod to Joy. She returned it with a faint smile, signaling a truce of sorts. Despite the earlier interruption, Robert walked away having defended his mission with conviction and heart.